Back here betting around the rim. How much fun were those? The Irizzary Awards. I'm getting text messages like crazy, but people loving this. We love this next guy, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him on the air in a while, and I feel like I've missed out, but we've known each other for a long time. We both went to Hofstra. He's crushing it in the game on heavy.com. So many other places. You see him on MSG, see him in so many places. Brandon Robinson, but we know him as Scoopy, and you can follow him on Twitter and social media platforms at Scoopy. What is up, Scoop? How you been, brother?
Hey, man, Keith, always good to come back home to MSG. Spent some time there a couple years ago, and good to see you, fellow Hofstra alum. You definitely pulled a Jay-Z change clothes, tuxedo to suit. I love it.
I know I saw that you were in our waiting room and you saw me trying to change into the tuxedo, get out of the tuxedo. Yeah, man. It was we're having some fun today. And you know, it's an all-star kind of day, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here. One of the things that I loved and I have loved about your career is how you went from a child reporter, right? Like a kid reporter making connections. Now you're like an adult and you have continued that along. Can you talk to me about that a little bit? And maybe some of my viewers don't know that much about that. Your like rise from being a kid reporter. How did that happen?
Well, to be brief, I auditioned in Chelsea Pier to do commercials for the Crash Dummies. And this was basically to be a child personality with Oswald Radio, which was at Liberty Science Center. Killed the first audition, killed the second audition. And essentially, I was chosen with 8 kids to do commercials with the Crash Dummies. And the Nets called that Oswald Radio and asked them if they had anybody that loved basketball. And they hired me. This was during the era of Calipari as head coach of the Nets. I actually hosted a show called Net Slam and Planet with Albert King and also Evan Roberts over at WFAN. And Chris Carino produced the show. He's the executive producer. So that was from the 97 season to 99 during the Bulls' last dance era. So, yeah, been around for a while.
Pretty awesome. And you've remained, ear to the grindstone, as much as anyone in the NBA. Let's start with Blake Griffin, because I love your tweets and your Instagram posts about like player movement and things that you are hearing from people inside, like in the know. And we're both in New York. Blake Griffin going to be a Brooklyn Net? Is that a foregone conclusion, or is there maybe another team that could swoop in?
The funny thing is, Keith, the Golden State Warriors can offer Blake the most money. They have an injured player exception, I believe, that's worth $9.3 million. The Nets, I believe, can offer $5.7 million in the disabled player exception that they have. The Heat is another team that has interest in Blake, as well as the Lakers. From everyone that I've spoken to, it really comes down to just fit. The Nets needed another scorer, if you will, and it's leaning towards that direction. They reached the buyout. Blake Griffin could become a Net. He clears waivers at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time today.
Dude, you know it. So let's talk about Blake Griffin, though, because there's this stat, he hasn't dunked in, almost 2 years, whatever. Yesterday, I did an all-time dunk list, and he was on my all-time list. I got so much pushback on social media when I said that Blake Griffin going to the Brooklyn Nets is another added piece that could, kind of move them towards a championship. Do you feel like he has that ability, or is it like other people say the dude is just washed?
No, I don't subscribe to the wash theory. He is averaging a career low in scoring this year, playing for the Pistons, but they don't need him to be Blake Griffin jumping over a Kia car in a slam dunk contest when he was a member of the Clippers. Really and truly, the Nets need some more bigger bodies and scorers. And the good thing about Blake is the fact that he has a rapport with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, going back to years ago. And when I look at Blake Griffin, what he's able to do, one thing that I admire very much, he kind of took a page out of Vince Carter's book. Everybody knew him as a high flyer during his days in Toronto. He became a Net and expanded his range. I believe that Blake Griffin, as well as Vince Carter, were everything later in their career that Dominique Wilkins was not. They became jump shooters that became veterans that are being serviceable for years. And I see Zach LaVine being that same player down the line.
Scoop, let's dive into Andre Drummond, because that name is going to be out there. What are you hearing?
There's interest. Kobe Altman is going to be very active at the NBA trading deadline on March 25th. From what I've heard, the Boston Celtics is a name that keeps ringing bells like Sundays at 12 o'clock for whatever reason. Another team that just I've been hearing quite a bit is the Toronto Raptors. I'm hearing a lot of talk as it relates to Kyle Lowry as well, as it relates to the Toronto Raptors. And so you look at the Golden State Warriors, you look at the Toronto Raptors, you look at the Philadelphia 76ers. They all have a need. There's been talk since the summertime of a potential move that the Warriors or the Sixers could make with the Raptors to get Kyle Lowry, who has an expiring contract. There are some other players throughout the league who have that. You look at Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets, who's been attractive as well. So Drummond, I'm hearing a lot, but I ultimately think it comes down to whether Cleveland wants to buy out or they want a deal. Drummond wants to play with the Knicks. He's from Mount Vernon. He likes the Nets as well. But I think with the Blake Griffin movement, I think the Nets kind of have an upper hand in their destination of what they want to fill with their roster.
He is Scoop B joining me, Keith Irizzary, betting around the rim. Our TV audience, you just got a chance to see maybe some players on the move. We talked about Andre Drummond. You mentioned Kyle Lowry. Two other names. And I don't know if this is like, smoke, there is fire, or if this is just, media bringing this about. But I heard Karl Anthony Towns' name could potentially be on the move. Is there any validity to that?
Well, there's a duality there. First of all, he's a native of Piscataway, New Jersey, stone's throw from Madison Square Garden, about an hour and a half drive, hour and a half. His family has been media darling, if you will. A lot of death in the family, and they're healing, immensely from that. A lot of tragedy. You wonder if there's a fresh start. People that I have spoken to within Minnesota, they say that they're on the up and up, that Karl and the team do communicate pretty regularly. Locally here, I do hear that if he's not happy, there could be a chance that he could, eventually request a trade. He and Thibodeau do have a relationship dating back to the Timberwolves days. Some people say that their relationship was irreparable. That's not the gist that I've gotten. I've gotten that Tibbs as well as Karl Anthony Towns are on the terms. But ultimately, it comes down to what Karl wants. The Timberwolves just brought in a new coach. There were some issues there as far as the coach that they let go and the coach or the assistant coach that many thought should have been David Vanterpool, who should have been the head coach, and he wasn't. But ultimately, it comes down to what Karl wants. He has an opt-out in the next year or two, and, he has a lot of decisions to make. He's not formally requested a trade, but at the same time, the Timberwolves are not playing well at all. They're playing beneath their privilege. And it depends on what if the Knicks were the team that he would want to go to, if they were to try to facilitate the trade, they'd have to give up some pieces. So it's going to be interesting, but he hasn't formally requested a trade.
All right, Scoop, let's dive further into that because we are on MSG. We're live here. And a lot of Knicks fans are out there watching this, right? So if Karl Anthony Towns were on the market, what would the Knicks have to trade for him? Because Karl Anthony Towns, I know this year has kind of been a lost year. Again, you talked about the tragedy. Karl Anthony Towns is a perennial all-star and perennially one of the top, 25 players in the world.
Well, when you look at the New York Knicks and their construction, first and foremost, you look at what I'm told for the last year, they've been dangling to other teams. When Chris Paul was a discussion, when that was a discussion, I'm told that it was anywhere along the lines of Kevin Knox in that trade, as well as Mitchell Robinson in potential trade talks. So if you're talking to Minnesota and you were trying to bring the Karl Anthony Towns semi-home, you'd have to start with that, but then you may have to part ways with either RJ Barrett or your all-star in Julius Randle. I don't think that you could just get away with just giving away Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson, to me, is a guy that is a big man that is a big rim protector that I like. But this year, it seems that Nerlens Noel is getting certain key moments of playing time that maybe last year Mitchell Robinson got. So if the Knicks were willing to part ways with Mitchell Robinson as well as Kevin Knox, as well as, either Julius Randle or RJ Barrett, then so be it. But RJ Barrett is in his second year, and he's been growing nicely, and Julius Randle is an all-star. So then you ask, do you wait a year or two when he's able to opt out? If he wants to play for the Knicks, maybe there's an opportunity to do that then.
Yeah, I like that. Boogie Cousins was on our list as well that we showed to the TV audience. What's the market looking like for DeMarcus?
It's an interesting market. Houston Rockets and DeMarcus parted ways a couple of weeks back. Folks that I have spoken with within his circle have shared, there's a multitude of teams. He has a relationship with the Los Angeles Lakers being on that roster, did not play much. He still maintains a relationship with Anthony Davis, who he was a teammate with during their days with the New Orleans Pelicans. He's also still close with Lakers assistant coach Phil Handy. But at one time, you thought that the Nets would be a possibility. We're still monitoring that situation as it relates to what they're going to do with Blake Griffin. They still do have an open roster spot currently, the Brooklyn Nets. But then you look at other teams. The Miami Heat are a team that's surging right now. And they're a team that has had interest in Boogie Cousins over the last couple of years during free agency. As a matter of fact, 2 off seasons ago, the Heat did really come close to potentially making something happen. He went in another direction. He signed with the Lakers. I think personally the Heat would be a great fit, but so are the Portland Trailblazers. I think that that's a great fit. You look at the Dallas Mavericks. I know that there's interest in Kevin Love of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Trade deadline is March 25th. If they try to make something happen in that regard, you can see what happens. But I do think Boogie Cousins is a serviceable big man. You're talking about a guy that can give you in his non-injured days 25 to 30 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. He's a walking triple-double as a big man. But ultimately, I think it comes down to really fit. I don't think it's so much attitude as it is fit. For years, people gave Boogie a hard time about fit. I think he fixed that ship. So it's fit. I think Dallas, Brooklyn, and the Lakers are definitely a fit.
All right. This is a basketball show, but we do gambling as well. So help me handicap this. If we're going Karl Anthony Towns, Kyle Lowry, let's go Victor Oladipo, PJ Tucker. I don't know who else I'm missing right now, but if we had to talk about guys that come March 25th are going to be on another team via a trade, what's kind of your order of guys that can help another team too? Not some of the lesser pieces, but some of the bigger pieces like that.
PJ Tucker for sure, a defensive presence, a guy that has relationship with guys in locker rooms. I see him, number one. We didn't talk about him in depth, but you look at him, I look at Kyle Lowry, and I look at Towns not so much this year. I see that more as an off-season conversation.
What about Oladipo? I got about 40 seconds with you.
Miami Heat still have an interest in him, so we'll see what happens. He was spotted wearing a Lakers jersey on the Snapchat the other day. He would be a fit with the Lakers as well, but you'd have to move Kyle Kuzma.
Final thing, last one. We're going to do this at the end of the show, but I want your opinion. Who's the MVP in tonight's All-Star game?
LeBron James.
You got LeBron. See, I wanted to go LeBron. I'm going Steph. I feel like Steph goes off for like 30 tonight, hits a bunch of threes. I think he wins the 3-point contest too. I think it's going to be a Steph night. That's where I'm leaning.
We'll see tonight. Game time.
All right, my man. Yeah, my man, Scoop, you're the best. Keep up the great work. Everyone can see your work on heavy.com, so many other places as well. Follow him on all the social media platforms, Scoop B. Thank you so much, Scoop. We'll catch up again very soon. We got a lot more to do here. When we return, we dive into Up Against the Clock. You know where it's at. It is betting around the rim.